Hey, everybody, we're glad that you're here. Welcome to Wonderful Words of Life. We have a new friend with us. Her name is Aleata Dawkins. She comes to us from the Salvation Army's National Capital and Virginia Division. She works there at the Area Command, and we're excited because she's going to talk to us this series about mental health. And first, I just want to say welcome, Aleata.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for traveling to our very beautiful studios here in Atlanta, Georgia, and sitting down with me and just talking about mental health.
Yes, I love it.
Tell our listeners a little bit about your story. Where did you come from? Why are you doing what you're doing? Just so we can get to know who you are.
Okay. Grew up in South Carolina. I'm a Southern
There
girl.
you go.
Grew up poor, of course, but always saw a need, always wanted to help someone. So I was fortunate enough to be able to go to school. I majored initially in political science because I like to know the backdrop of how things work, how we build in this society. But I still wanted to get into serving. Felt like God was really calling me to do something different, something to serve more. So I worked for a couple of organizations who provided substance abuse treatment, work release services for clients who were exiting the jail or inmates who were exiting jail. And at that time, as I was saying earlier, there was just this one case where this guy who was in his 60s was able to, he was signing out, he was checking out, he was free, he was ready to go. And so I walked him over to the jail in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I said, "You're free to go." And he just stood there and said, "Miss Aliato, where do I go?" You know, he had pretty much burned all the bridges in his life through his substance abuse. And so we stood there for about 20 minutes. And without him saying another word, he just kind of took off up the hill running with that. And that moment kind of just stuck with me.
Yeah.
What happens to individuals who have no one to turn to, no place to go,
Right.
who helps them? So from there, I just felt like God was just calling me into that field. And so I just went back to school, got the necessary degrees and certifications and licensures, but I've always really been tied to programs that provide service in the community. And so I've been almost 19 years now providing services to the homeless community, families and individuals in need. And it's been wonderful. And just having the clinical expertise on top of that, I utilize it to help me work with people a
Yeah.
little bit better.
Man, well, we're glad that you're here. We're glad that you're working with the Salvation Army with that expertise in particular. And we're going to do an 11-part series on mental health
Yes,
with Wonderful
11.
Words of Life. So no pressure, but
No pressure.
you're going to be,
I'm excited.
you're on the hook for 11 weeks.
11 minutes.
While we've got you here in the studio, we just want to talk about each of the topics. And our first week is going to be under the topic overwhelmed. And I think that you have, I know you have a passion for mental health in particular. But when we say that word overwhelmed, what kind of bells go off in your mind?
For me, overwhelm comes the word balancing act. You know, as a parent myself, and probably for majority of the listeners, that's what we do on a daily basis. We balance what we have to do with what we want to do and what we need to do. And in terms for some of us, the majority of us, that balancing act can get out of hand. And when we lose grip on it, then we're overwhelmed. And the feelings of being overwhelmed for individuals is different. But for the most part, I believe that it's been a spirit where we've just kind of let go our ability to be humans and interact with individuals. And we're so focused on getting to the next thing that we forget that God has kind of given us the precious present to absorb for a minute. And so that out-of-whelmness has us out of balance at work. Out of balance in our family lives. Very few people, because we're working so much to keep up with, I don't know who, the old saying, keeping up with the Joneses, we're losing the family time. We're working more hours
Yeah.
than traditionally maybe our parents did. making more money, a lot more successful than probably most of our parents are. But the breakdown in the family is having an effect on who we are. We're
Yeah.
not able to maintain that type of continual going through life on a daily basis without pausing and having a minute to ourselves. And I think that's where individual and people get overwhelmed. The speed of life today, particularly with social media,
Yeah.
and keeping up with the Joneses or keeping up with the fictitious pictures that we see
Sure.
in social media, it's having an adverse effect on who we are. And it's actually taking a hold of our mental health.
Yeah.
We're not able to relax, calm down. I think I've heard someone term it of, is it MOFO or FEMO, fear of missing out?
FOMO. Yeah.
FOMO,
Fear of missing out. Right.
fear of missing out on what's going to happen. So we always have to be in something,
Yeah.
do something.
Before in the business place, like you would send a letter and it would take a couple days for the letter to get there and someone needed to respond and it would take a couple days to get back. And now everything, particularly with email and, I mean, back in the day, faxes were the way to get something done immediately, but everything is so fast now. And people have stopped writing. They send text messages or, do a quick call on a phone and they want an answer now for everything. There's no just taking a breath.
Yes.
And when you're overwhelmed,
You need that breath.
you need that breath.
You need that breath to take a break. And even with your scenario regarding the emails, the whole purpose is as soon as you see it at work, you need to
Yeah.
respond. But then another one comes in and then you respond. And before you know it, you've missed lunch. And it's time to go. And then you just, let me stay 5 more minutes. And 5 minutes turn into 30 minutes. And therein lies that whole breakdown of the structure of having the time to relax.
Yeah.
And so we're in a society that wants us to keep going, 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 going. And I really do believe, in essence, it's not what God intended for us. He made the earth in 6 days, but on the seventh day he rested.
Yeah.
And so we as society are not putting that time in to rest, to be there, to be with our families. We are on our phones. So we have to be engaged in everything. So
Yeah.
we're engaged in work. We're engaged in Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. We don't even have time. We have a rule in my house where, 7 p.m., everything shuts down.
Wow.
We go back to the old ways of doing homework, reading books and things like that, just so we can just disconnect from technology. You need that to let our brains just kind of rest and relax.
That is wise. That I appreciate you doing that, because our children need people in their lives. They need people that are present in their lives. The relationships that we have with each other, whether it's in the workplace or it's a personal relationship, if you're not present, I don't know how they can be fruitful relationships. And when we're so distracted by our phones or the media that we have just hounding us for our time from every angle, I
We never
appreciate what you're
shut off.
saying.
We never shut off. We're looking at the news. We're keeping up with the news, the changes in the stock market, the changes with presidential orders or things like that. We never have the opportunity to shut off. One of the things that I did this weekend, because May was Mental Health Awareness Month,
Yep.
and so most of the churches have been talking about having some segments within mental health. And I remember sitting in service. And my son is one that's very engaged, always engaged. And so we always have a conversation about, just relax, enjoy life. You're 15, you don't have to think about what you need to do at 30. You're going to miss this whole span of time. And so there's a little book called The Precious Present. So I ordered it for him. And then what it does, it just teaches you how to be in the moment with individuals. When we're not in the moment, most of us sit in conversations and we hear people, but we don't listen.
Yeah.
So just to be able to sit and take a moment back from whatever it is you're doing, whether it's work, and then as individuals in this high pressure society, you also need time for yourself.
Yeah.
Because as parents, as individuals who carry jobs every day, we don't give ourselves an opportunity to get off the hook and just have one-on-one time with ourselves.
Yeah.
Whether that's through meditation, in your word, just a cup of coffee, just taking a walk, observing nature. And I believe that's some of the things that we really need to get back to, so that this state of being overwhelmed, we can start to counteract it in our own individual lives and give ourselves permission. And so if anyone is listening to this today, I want you to be able to give yourself permission to let yourself off the hook. It's okay to take a day off. It's okay to not cook for one evening. It's okay if you don't mow the grass this weekend. In the essence of time and being able to spend time with family, is it okay to be outside for 4 hours manicuring the lawn, or can I pay somebody $50 and they get it done in 30 minutes? We really need to look at where we're associating our time and who are we associated with. We want to make sure, in order to counteract those feelings and that spirit of being overwhelmed, that you're really paying attention and you're in tune to who you are. And that's very difficult for most people because society tells you need to be doing this. And to do this, you'll be able to get that. But what society doesn't tell you, or what we don't see oftentimes, are the mental breaks that people have by staying in that constant state of going, one after another. And so hopefully this podcast, when we talk about being overwhelmed, will just give somebody will give themselves permission to be okay, to take a break.
You have permission to take a break. Aleata Dawkins says so. I'm Bernie Dake with Wonderful Words of Life. Thank you for joining us. Now, if you keep coming back week to week for this 11-week series, you may hear Aleata sing. I won't make any promises, but if she doesn't, I will. God bless you. Take a break.